So I'm good? Okay. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. If you can, hello? Hey, we're up here having a meeting. Thank you. Yeah, if we can come to order, I appreciate it. We will start this is a special meeting of the Encinitas City Council to discuss and give direction to the city for the FY 26-27 operating and capital improvement budgets. And we will start today with roll call.
Yep. Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember San Antonio?
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
Deputy Mayor is here, I see him. And then Mayor Ehlers.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the council are present tonight.
Okay, and so we'll start out with a staff report, and then we'll have public comments. Right now, I think we have 8 so far, and it'll be full 3 minutes. And I'll hand it over to the city manager to kick it off.
Right.
And she'll hand it over immediately to Tom.
Yes. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Before I begin this afternoon, I'd like to introduce Finance Manager Kelly Sanderson and Assistant Finance Director Nikki Chalfant, and also Engineering Director Dan Nutter, who will be presenting with me this afternoon, as well as the City Manager for this budget workshop. Department directors and staff are also available to answer questions. The agenda for this afternoon's workshop includes a discussion of the financial structure and assumptions staff used in developing a baseline budget, a forecast for the general fund, including a 5-year budget projection, anticipated operating budget expenditures for fiscal year 26-27, the projected ending fund balance for the current fiscal year 25-26, and the projected balance available next fiscal year for operating and/or capital project appropriations. We will also have a presentation of capital projects by status and proposed changes to the CIP plan. And finally, we'll be presenting the budget calculator again as a tool to identify new projects and for appropriation, as well as operating budget requests. When we began the budget process, we ensure that we present a structurally balanced budget, which means reoccurring revenues exceed or equal to recurring expenditures. Best budget practice is that one-time revenue and reserves should not be used to fund ongoing operations. We also ensure that reserves are fully funded at policy levels, which are 20% of operating budget for our contingency reserve, 2% of revenue for a budget stabilization reserve. These projections meet our debt, pension, and contractual obligations, and also fund priority projects that we project in the future. With that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Assistant Finance Director Chalfant.
Thank you, Tom. I will get into the 5-year long-range financial outlook, starting with this graph. It depicts the projected revenues and expenditures over the next 5 years, with the revised FY26 mid-year budget as a starting point. The trend line shows the expenditure budget falling just under our projected revenue columns across each of the 5 years, indicating a structurally balanced budget where our ongoing revenues are expected to exceed ongoing expenses. In the stacked columns, you'll see the revenue groupings highlighting the major sources of revenue for the city. The other revenue is grouped together, which includes franchise fees, excise tax, license and permit revenue, use of money and property, intergovernmental, and other revenues. Also note that the total expenditure trend line depicted in this includes non-discretionary transfers to internal service funds, which I'll discuss further in a minute. As you saw in the previous graph, how the expenditure line appears just below the revenue levels, this graph highlights the specific amounts of excess revenue that are projected to be available as unassigned fund balance in future years. For example, $1.4 million is anticipated to be added to fund balance in FY27, while $3 million is anticipated as surplus in FY28. The graph shows the revenue outpaces expenditure growth and increases the addition to fund balance each year. The base budget surplus can be utilized to fund infrastructure, planned asset replacements, priority CIP or O&M projects, or other critical needs. Planning for unassigned fund balance programming should consider both current and future year needs. Moving on to debt, this graph shows the total governmental debt service obligations over the next 30 years. Currently, our debt obligation is $5.5 million annually, with about $5 million being funded from the general fund and $500,000 for the 2013 park bonds being funded out of parkland mitigation fee revenue. Our current ratio of debt service to O&M expenditures is about 4.7%, and it'll be falling over time to less than 1% by fiscal year 2039. Diving into fiscal year 27, here's the breakout of our projection of revenue totaling $126 million. Property tax makes up the majority of our general fund revenue of 60%, with a growth rate that comes from our property tax consultant at 5.94%, showing healthy growth in our property tax revenue. Our consultant considers our actuals to date, as well as key indicators like the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, the Encinitas median home price, as well as any known developments within city limits. Our sales tax projection, also based on the latest reports from our consultant, account for modest growth of 1.7%. Growth rates for sales tax factor in key economic indicators like consumer confidence, consumer price index, and trade policy. Growth rates here reflect a softening economy with lower consumer confidence levels, yet still steady growth. Our TOT projections assume a modest growth of 2.1%, but also factor in additional anticipated revenue from current unpermitted short-term vacation rental compliance efforts. Tourism has seen a bit of softening demand with some declines in business and international travel, but still remains steady. Charges for current services includes right-sizing our user fee revenue with some updated personnel costs, but does not include the updated fees associated with our current comprehensive user fee study that is going on right now. Other revenue here includes updates to cost allocation recovery rates and also includes franchise fee, excise tax, license and permit revenue, some of a gas tax portion to the general fund, and a vacancy savings assumption of 2.5%. Although property tax makes up the majority of our general fund tax base, it's important to understand that of that total property tax revenue, for every $1 paid, only 24 cents goes to the city's general fund. That is based on state law. The remainder gets split amongst counties, schools, and special districts. Of the 24 cents, 16 cents is used for public safety, and the final 8 cents goes to fund all remaining current services and operations in the capital improvement program. Over the next 2 slides, you'll see the breakdown of FY27 expenditures by type and by department. We currently are projecting $124.6 million in baseline expenditures. This is less than the $126 million in revenue. It represents about a 3% growth over the FY26 adopted budget, but a slight decrease compared to the mid-year budget due to one-time expenses via capital transfers. The FY27 budget includes non-discretionary transfers out, such as debt service, self-insurance funding, and asset replacements, but does not include one-time capital transfers that are decided on a year-to-year basis through this process. Personnel makes up the largest share of expenses at 50% and includes updated costs for new and known MOU increases. Contracts and services makes up the second largest share, with the law enforcement contract making up 18% of the budget. And the final category of materials and supplies making up the 2% remaining. As mentioned earlier on the debt slide, about $5 million of annual debt service obligations are covered by the general fund, while the other $500,000 is being funded out of the parkland mitigation fee revenue. Here we have the same $124.6 million in expenditures, but this time it's broken down by a department. You can see that public safety makes up about 40% of the general fund, 17% of law enforcement, and 23% is fire and marine safety. Development services, parks, recreation, and cultural arts, public works, and engineering all make up close to 10% each, while information technology is about 3%, and all other remaining departments include departments like human resources, finance, risk, city administration. Note that some departments do have additional funds outside of general fund. And now Tom will summarize how the projected 27 revenues and expenditures add to the overall fund balance.
Thank you, Nikki. For fiscal year 27, we are projecting a budgetary surplus available for appropriation of slightly less than $1 million. That was calculated based on $126 million of projected revenues, which includes the portion of gas tax revenue, which funds public works operations and is not dedicated to street overlay, and also the vacancy savings assumption of 2.5% that Nikki mentioned, which amounts to $1.7 million. We anticipate $124.6 million in expenditures. That also includes operating transfers from the general fund to our internal service funds, which include Fund 601, which is our self-insurance fund, Funds 622 and 623, which are asset replacement funds for vehicles and equipment, and Fund 624 for fire apparatus replacement and debt service, which amounts to $5.6 million. Expenditures also include the remaining debt service transfers of $5 million, which arrives at a budgetary surplus of $1.4 million. We have programmed $450,000 for projects that we do know need to be completed in the future, and this is how we arrived at the projected budgetary surplus for next fiscal year of $950,000. I mentioned the programming capital projects, which include the housing element, which we are anticipated anticipating will require $1 million in appropriations over a 4-year period. So next year would be $250,000 appropriated for that project. Leo Mullen turf replacement, originally we identified that as funded through the general fund. However, we can fund that through the Encinitas Ranch Landscape and Lighting District, Fund 297, for $330,000 next year. And finally, playground equipment replacement at Orpheus Park, which is funded through the general fund, but that is restricted to cell tower lease revenue that we collect from cell towers at park sites, and that is $210,000. And I will hand the presentation over to City Manager Campbell at this point.
Thank you, Director Gallup. So as Tom had mentioned, with looking at the operating revenues and then the operating expenses, having the 1.4 and then the already programmed capital improvement projects leaves us about 950. However, we completed our audit, which it was a clean audit, and then we went ahead and went through year end. So after going through year end and looking at expenses, and tonight you will also see on the regular agenda, we'll have the mid-year budget adjustments. We actually have a unassigned fund balance of $7.7 million. So this includes resolutions adopted through March 11th of 2026. So our mid-year projected fund balance is 7.7. So with the 7.7 and the 0.95, we will actually have 8.65 million to allocate for capital improvement projects and other operations and maintenance requests. What it does not include right now are 7.7 million along with the 0.95 is we are expecting a $2.6 million FEMA reimbursement. It has gone through most of all the channels. It's just having to be checked off by a couple more boxes. We do not have the check currently, so as I like to say, I don't want to count the chickens before they're hatched, but we should be receiving that money. And what I wanted to note out that we have not allocated yet was Council went ahead and directed us to apply for federal rail grants. They were for the Leucadia at-grade crossings, the citywide quiet zone, and the Verde undercrossing. So we've already went ahead. Those were put in the middle of February. So those are in and ready to go. Now, those do have a grant match. So I wanted to list for council to see that we would need 1.3 million if we get the grant for the Leucadia at-grade crossings. We would need 2.9 if we get the citywide quiet zones, and we would need 4.2 for the Verde undercrossing. So if for some reason the grant gods looked favor upon us and we did get all three, that would be $8.4 million. So what we're kind of looking for is, since we don't have the 2.6 million in hand as we do with the 7.7 and the 0.95, we were thinking that that might be a good holdover in case we do get a grant match. So I did want to just go ahead and point that out. So if you turn to the next page, this is where our this is our projected general fund unassigned balance that we will be able to talk tonight in the budget calculator, and it is a total of $8.65 million that we have. Next up, I wanted to talk about capital improvement project, and I have with me tonight Director of Engineering, Dan Nutter. So this is a project sheet that we have seen for many years. This project sheet is currently on our website under city projects. And this is basically a list of all the projects that are either in construction now or have been designed or getting ready. And there's a lot of projects on here that don't have design, don't have construction funding. It's a rather large list. You go from letter A to W, so there's quite a bit on here. So a lot of this came from, whether it be the infrastructure task force, whether it came from different council priorities, whether it came from staff recommendations, but this is a rather large list. One of the things that we intend to do for next year's budget, and one of the items that has been discussed on the possible annual work plan, is to come up with a 5-year CIP, which is a capital improvement program. As you noted, we had 2 items that were currently appropriated for, which was the Leo Mullen turf, the Orpheus playground equipment, and as well as the housing element. So what a 5-year CIP is, if you noted when Assistant Director Chalfant talked about the projections, and it was kind of the delta between our expenses and our revenue, and we were 1.3 million, 3 million, and we continue to grow. What we would do as staff and with council's direction is we would look at appropriating that money. So it would actually have a 5-year forecast on where that money could go. Obviously, depending on what we might have at any type of mid-year unassigned fund balances, it could be added, but this will actually be a true capital improvement program that we could actually do. Because if you currently look at this list, you have millions and millions of dollars, and there's not a lot of funding sources. So what we'd like to do as staff is we will continue to keep this list up. We will continue to have it on the website. It will be available for the public and council, and we can always look at that. But what we're going to do moving from this budget, we're going to do that capital improvement program because we really want to be able to show projects that we can get done within the next 5 years, and then we can show council and residents how we're going to be able to use that funding. So we're really excited about doing that because it really sets forward a plan. And then, of course, if we have any hiccups or wrinkles or anything like that, or we get grants and things like that, we can move things forward. It is still a working document. We can be flexible. So I do have Director of Engineering Nutter here if there's any questions about any of the projects. As you can see, a lot of them look familiar at the top, like Grandview Beach Staircase. Yep, we're on it already. The Leucadia Streetscape Segment C, we're on it. So as you notice, the ones at the top are the ones that are either currently designed and currently in construction and that are moving forward. So at this time, we're happy to take any questions on any specific project, or we can, I know the Mayor and I talked, this is really the end of the presentation because what we're going to get to next after that would be the budget calculator, and I know the Mayor would like to take public comments.
Yeah, and so what I was thinking, I wanted to make sure the public had the the majority of the report. We'll get into the nitty gritty with the calculator after public comments. We can get the input now from the public. So with that, we have 8?
We have 9 actually
9,
now.
okay. So let's 3 minutes each.
Okay. And I'll call you 3 at a time. Looks like we have 10 now. Nancy DeGino, followed by Carol Heil, and then Donna Peterson.
Good afternoon, Mayor Ehlers and council members. Please fund the at-grade crossings now. I'm here today on behalf of Now Leucadia and also on my own behalf as a resident of Northwest Leucadia and a traumatic incident I witnessed. Back in the mid-90s, when I was a new resident here, I was returning home from dropping my oldest off at the preschool in Vulcan one morning, and I saw near the train tracks what appeared to be most of the bottom half of a person lying on the ground not far from a stationary train. I was understandably shaken by this sight, and although I didn't really want to know what had happened, I had to find out. A resident had been casually and absent-mindedly walking toward the tracks while walking their dog and using their headphones. I still can't shake this horrible image in my head, and no person should ever have to witness such a tragedy. Having legitimate crossings would lessen the probability of this happening again in the future. Funding safe at-grade crossings in Northwest Leucadia meets the criteria of so many of this council's goals for the coming fiscal year. While AGX are listed under the mobility category of the CIP, they also qualify under the public safety, infrastructure, and economic vitality categories. That's 4 of the city's categories. 4 of the city's 6 categories. So many residents and businesses have waited decades for this improvement. Please prioritize this and fund AGX now. Please make this part of your legacy. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, council members and Mayor Ehlers. My name is Carol Heil, and I'm here on behalf of Now Leucadia and the residents of Leucadia and Encinitas. We urge you to fund the at-grade rail crossings now. We can't afford to wait. No one can predict what infrastructure needs will demand your attention in the 27-28 budget year, And it is clear that this infrastructure project needs your attention and funding in the 26-27 budget. Waiting any longer and delaying these safety improvements for years is simply unacceptable. The community is clear. In just the past week, Now Leucadia has gathered over 400 signatures in support of funding the at-grade crossings. This builds on decades of advocacy. The momentum is real, and it's growing. After 40 years of effort, we've cleared the hardest hurdles. City and regulatory approvals are in place. All that remains is funding. We'd like to thank the council and city staff. It took a village, and we appreciate your continued dedication and efforts for getting us this far. So, let's not lose this moment. Let's act now and get these crossings built. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Peterson, and I'm a 35-year resident in Leucadia. I'm here today to speak in support of funding the at-grade rail crossings in Leucadia now. I've written the council many times over many years about the tremendous need for safe rail crossings in Leucadia. The Leucadia at-grade crossing project is long overdue and will address significant safety and mobility issues. Having safe rail crossings in Leucadia will connect Leucadia residents with the post office, stores, salons, restaurants, Pilates and yoga studios, public transportation, and of course the beach. Our community is quite literally bisected by the rail corridor. People currently either cross illegally and dangerously, or they get in their cars to drive to Leucadia Boulevard or La Costa Avenue. Having safe rail crossings will allow pedestrians and bicyclists to safely cross the rail, reducing the number of cars on our roads. Leucadians have waited a very long time for safe rail crossings. I'm asking you to please fund these now. Thank you.
Next three speakers, Randy Peterson, followed by Fabian Ganell, and then June Hansberger.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Randy Peterson, and I have lived in Encinitas since its founding, and in Leucadia specifically since 1991. And I'm here to support the Leucadia at-grade rail crossing, but first, it's been a while since I've been at a city meeting, so I'd like to take a moment to congratulate Jennifer Campbell on her position as city manager, and at the same time, not only congratulate her, but commend the mayor and council for your decision. I had an opportunity to interact with the city over a span of about 5 years, previous mayor and council when Ms. Campbell was director of Parks and Recreation. And while I was, I would say, less than enthusiastic or a little disappointed in just about everybody I had an opportunity to interact with at the city with this project, Ms. Campbell was a breath of fresh air, and she was the one person through that whole interaction that I felt I could trust with her word. So you've made a good decision, and congratulations. And now you're going to hear a lot about reasons why, as far as the Leucadia at-grade rail crossing. I just want to say it's time. Come on, it's time. We've been at this for a long time. The reasons are the same. And between La Costa and Leucadia Boulevards, that's a long ways to go. It's not like Leucadia's asking for a crossing to get over so we can surf. You know, yes, that is something that's there, but we've got a long ways to, we got a hill to climb and then some stairs to go down to get to the beach. Leucadia is asking to connect the community, connect the two sides of the rail corridor. I mean, it's just time. The reasons, excuses all stay the same. So please, and Councilmember Schaefer, you're our representative now. And myself personally, I kind of feel like we have not been represented well. And I think by his own volition, our previous representative, when he was mayor, said he didn't want to act, say, provincial. You know, I've heard that comment. You need to really go to bat for your constituents. So pressure's on you. But anyway, thank you all for hearing us out. Bye.
So I have a couple of slides. While I wait, I'll say, though I'm not here for Leucadia rail crossings, I live in Village Park. I'm all for them. I looked at past budget documents going all the way back to 1920. They have been asking for years.
20? So do we want to take the other? Yeah, Fabian, why don't you go work with them? Let's take the next one, which I think is June.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. I'm June Hansberger. I am a 35-year resident of Leucadia, and I have been speaking to advocate for safe mobility for our community for probably the last 20 years. So I'm here again to ask for safe mobility in Leucadia, starting with the at-grade crossings. Thank you to staff and this entire group of people here tonight that made the at-grade crossings happen. We see you and we appreciate it, and I know it's been years in the making, but just so everybody is aware, we want to see this on this year's budget. I know, and thank you to city staff that has written grants. It's so appreciated, but we want to see the money allocated and set aside for us now. We all know what happens when money is not available for these projects. I have been fighting for quite a few for a while, and they just do not come to fruition because the money is not there. Maybe not that the goodwill isn't behind it, but we need the money set aside. So that is what we are asking for. Additionally, I'm not sure that now Leucadia brought the surveys, but there were over, I think, 200 members that signed the most recent ask for at-grade crossings. Over the last 20 years, you have probably had thousands of members of Leucadia sign petitions asking for at-grade crossings. So please fund them. Thank you for your time.
Are you ready, Fabi?
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me. I just have 3 questions for staff to try to help me and all the other citizens that are interested in budget issues kind of go through this process, understand what's going on. And I've got a couple of slides that set the context. So let me try to control this. There we go. Okay, we'll start with that. Okay, so this is the unassigned balance trend for the past few years. It shows what the projection was at time of adoption, then mid-year, which we have now, and then what it finally was. And one thing we see consistently is that at adoption, we're super conservative as to what's going to happen. Mid-year, still conservative, sometimes a little bit less so, and then end of year is end of year, and that's what happens. And this year we have 500,000 was the at budget projection, and now we have 7.7 million as the mid-year projection. And my first question to you is, has the methodology changed such that it would make the new projection any more reliable or less conservative than in prior years, or is this sort of pattern kind of what we can expect? So that's question number 1. Next question is about internal service funds. And one thing you can see here, going back, starting 1920, from fiscal year 20 to 23, we're in the 9 to 10 million range as the total internal service fund net, except for the COVID year where it went down a little bit. Then in 23, 24, city made a decision to really boost those reserves, created the technology replacement fund, and so it went up by quite a bit. And then last year it went down again, and it went down for the first time since the COVID year. And so my second question is, was that drawdown fiscal year 25 kind of a one-time thing, or is that a policy change that we can expect going forward to draw this total balance down? And a related question, my third question is related. Looking over at some past documents and looking at the general fund, I saw a chart called the condensed statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the general fund. And under that, there's a line for net transfers. And I would just ask you to please explain what's in that. My sense is that that includes these kind of transfers, but I'm not sure, and I'd like to understand. I think that would provide a lot of clarity to those of us who are trying to follow the discussion. Thank you.
Next three speakers, Anthony De La Fuente, followed by Russell Levan, and then Lauren Paul.
Hi, my name is Anthony De La Fuente. I'm a resident of Leucadia, and I'd like to advocate for the at-grade crossings. I think it would really enhance the value of the streetscape. We've all been waiting a long time for that, so letting us all access it very easily without having to get into our car or throw a bunch of kids in a wagon and try and walk around that. Every day, people have to make a decision whether to hop in their car, create more traffic on the road that we all hate in the time we've all lived here, or take the risk of hopping over the fence and crossing through the construction, et cetera. It would further enhance the sales tax revenue, getting more people to actually use it. So it would be really wonderful if we could get these funded now, since there is the budget excess for that. I appreciate the time.
Good afternoon. I'm Russell Levan, and I don't know if you can feel it, but I can feel it, and we've been waiting forever, and this is the moment. So just keep that in mind. At-grade crossings, as everyone said, it's been decades, and we hope that you feel the same way, that it's time to act and put some money towards this project. There were 64 pages of comments online for this meeting of folks that can't be here. There were 7 that weren't about at-grade crossings. There were 2 that were blank pages. So there's another 55 people that are encouraging you to do this today and in the next budget meetings. I do want to mention that we were going to have a roundabout project at Hygeia in Leucadia for 23 years. That got scrapped. So that $7 million-ish was supposed to be dedicated to that. Well, it was $7 million, then it went up to $12 million. 23 years, a long time to see the prices go up. So I'm hoping that some of that, I heard, I don't know, a year ago, that some of that discussion was going to take some of that money, whatever it was, and put it towards drainage as well as at-grade crossings. So I'm hoping that that stays in your mind. And I just want to, well, first I want to ask a question. I saw that it's 2.9 million is hopefully going to be put towards a citywide quiet zone. But from my understanding at the last quiet zone meeting, it only extends up to Leucadia Boulevard and not north. So it's not really citywide, it's kind of citywide until you get to Leucadia. So if we have at-grade crossings, which I still want you to do, I want to actively pursue in that list of 1,000 projects that we continue to try and get a quiet zone, but that's working with Carlsbad all the way up to Cannon, or in the interim, get wayside horns. They work. We've had numerous demonstrations about wayside horns. They're not expensive. If you're going to put this in, why wouldn't you do that? Because we're going to switch one problem and then we're going to add a new one where everyone's going to be down here, and you'll hear about it from all the horns that they're going to blow from La Costa down to Leucadia Boulevard. So that's my additional, sorry, I'm getting something I want, and I'm going to ask for more, but that's just the way it is. And I'm out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And following Lauren, final speaker is Judy Burlfine.
Hi, my name is Lauren Paul. I'm a local resident and mother of 2 future Paul Ecke students, and I am here to advocate for the Orpheus Path project. I think it makes sense to do it in parallel with the Paul Ecke construction. Jim and I spoke about that, and I think he's in agreement as well. And just to reemphasize, our neighborhood currently has no sidewalks that go down to Paul Ecke. And the two streets that you go down to get to the school are both winding streets that I navigate 2 to 3 times a week with a stroller, always dodging cars, moving sides of the street to get out of the way. So I just want to emphasize that this path would provide safe and accessible routes for families with strollers, for cyclists. It would also open up a lot of access to the corridor going to the 101 to access local businesses. And this sentiment is widely shared in the neighborhood. Everyone that I've spoken to is enthusiastic about having more accessible paths going down to the school. And also hearing tonight that there's some construction on the Orpheus Park. Again, I think that makes sense to all do in conjunction. So I think the last I heard, the design was partially done. So I'd like to pick that back up and ask that we can complete the design and pursue some safe routes to school grants so that we can make this a reality. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Judy Burlfine. I have a few requests. Allocate funding for the at-grade crossing. And Russell brings up a really good point with the quiet zone. If you have any questions, I'm sure all these people know about it, but also talk to the people in San Clemente because they put in all those at-grade crossings and it was a little nutty without a quiet zone. I also want to ask you to allocate funding for city infrastructure repairs, such as old roofs that might soon be leaky. I learned about this in an article in the Union Tribune that says we have $4.6 million in immediate and short-term repair work for City Hall alone. So I hope you will increase the set aside for these types of repairs from $1 million to at least $2.5 million, as they recommended. And keep in mind that they say we will need to bump that up to $4.6 million in 3 years. So something to think about. I also want to ask for you to create a campaign for crosswalks, curb ramps, and rapidly flashing beacons. I would suggest we identify a dozen or so locations that need upgrades and tackle this low-hanging fruit to make crossing streets safer. I know a lot of people who support this, but they also work day jobs. I'm lucky to be retired and aren't here today. Maybe next year we can have this meeting in the evening because it's hard for a lot of people to get here. And my biggest request is my last request, and that's to, if possible, expedite the permits for Gelato 101 because it's really hot and we'd all love some ice cream. Thank you.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. And with that, recognize the city manager.
Thank you. Director Nutter, if you wouldn't mind, please give an update on where we're at with the at-grade crossings, because when we do get to the budget calculator, we do have $300,000 that we're asking for to finish design, and then also an update on the quiet zone.
Absolutely. So I'll start with the at-grade crossing project. So when we originally began the design process for the at-rail crossing project, we allocated enough budget for our consultant to be able to get through the CPUC approval process. At that time, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get CPUC approval or not, so we didn't want to have cash flow management issues with holding on to money. So we strategically decided to cut it off at about 30% design and wait until we determined whether we would get CPUC approval. The great news is near the end of February, we did receive formal acknowledgement that the administrative law judge and CPUC has approved the at-grade crossings, so that's wonderful. But as our city manager mentioned, we do now need to finish design. So with that, we are requesting $300,000, and we'll come forward with a consultant contract amendment with our consultant as well. We are not slowing down on design right now, so we are still marching forward. We have enough budget to continue on until early July, so that's great, that's important. Right now, we are anticipating that we will have full design completed by roughly the end of this calendar year. And that is contingent upon us having the $300,000 and our consultant contract amended. I do also want to let council know that we are attempting to get wayside horns or another AWS, kind of like how they have in San Clemente, for the at-grade crossings project. That is a waiver that has to be approved by the FRA, which is the Federal Railroad Administration. It's not a guarantee, but it is something that we as staff really care about. We hear the community. I lived in Leucadia for a decade. I get it. So that is something that we really, really do care about. So we are doing that as the number one priority with these crossings. If the FRA does not allow wayside horn or another AWS, we'll obviously bring it to council so you understand and to the community as well. Right now, we don't have any reason to suspect they wouldn't grant that, but just wanted everyone to understand it's not a given. With the D Street to Leucadia Boulevard Quiet Zone project, and yes, that is not a citywide quiet zone. So I do want to make that very clear. This would extend our quiet zone from Chesterfield up through Leucadia Boulevard. Our timing on that is very similar to the timing that we have for the Leucadia at-grade rail crossings project. So we are anticipating being done with design on that project in roughly late fall, sometime in probably October-ish. So we're getting close on both of them. For the Quiet Zone project, that has a little bit of a different review and approval process. That actually has to be approved by the FRA. So we have not received FRA approval at this point, and we will not be able to formally receive their approval until we have final design, and that is reviewed and approved by them. So from a standpoint of timing, we're looking at late fall, early winter for both projects to be ready to start the construction bidding process.
And so do we have any questions? I know I do, but, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, since you're beginning to then explain that, can you explain the reason why the limits of the quiet zone only go to Leucadia? I think
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. So unfortunately, the Federal Railroad Administration, they require that a quiet zone be what they call bookmarked by vehicular crossings. So because of that, the nearest vehicular crossing that we have from Leucadia Boulevard would be Cannon Road. La Costa Avenue does not count because it's actually not a crossing. It is grade separated, so that doesn't count. This is something that we actually went back to the FRA about a month ago and asked them for a third time, and a third time they told us no. A pedestrian crossing cannot be considered a bookend. We kept on asking, hoping we would get a different answer. We haven't at this point, and I don't anticipate we will, because the FRA's requirement is bookends are vehicular crossings. So unfortunately, that's the reason.
Do you see some opportunity to continue to coordinate with the city of Carlsbad then on getting an approval up to Cannon?
So from a staff level, unfortunately, I don't see there being any additional leeway that we're able to make.
Okay.
Now, I have heard some different reasons from the city of Carlsbad why they have not had interest in the past on upgrading the Cannon Road crossing. Those reasons may have shifted over the last couple of years. So there may be some desire from an elected official perspective to maybe investigate that. But at this point, the discussions that I have had at the city engineer level, there's not interest to continue on.
Okay. Yeah, it's I mean, that's what I understand as well, but it's informative to know what your perspective is from the staff level, and it may be something that can be continued at other levels. But thank you for the update. So I wanted to give some high-level input, and I'm glad that we're getting a lot more realistic about what our needs are. Everybody knows we went through an infrastructure task force activity a couple of years ago with a lot of public outreach, and we understood at that time what our infrastructure needs were. And then just this last year, as one of the speakers referenced, was covered in the Coast News, that we're doing a facility assessment. So we're understanding what our needs are as far as maintenance of our facilities. So information is power. Of course, we're seeing that.
Councilmember, could I just interrupt momentarily?
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is get questions of clarification from staff, and then we can come back. If you're going into your recommendations, we'd like to go through the city manager would like to go through the calculator first, if that would be okay. But I just want to check where you're going with this right now.
Yeah, I was going to give a high-level input and then ask a few detailed questions, but I can jump to the detailed questions, if that's okay.
And you'll have the same opportunity to do the high level.
Yeah.
I think once we get through the calculator, we can kind of frame what the trade-offs are at a high level, what the calculator will be like, and then we can get to the general high-level stuff. So if you could go to questions of staff primarily.
Is this the right time then to ask the question about the Orpheus, the playground replacement? Or would that be more for later, Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lyon. So what we like to do is, I talked to the mayor, if council has any questions of Dan regarding either the at-grade or the quiet zone, we'd like to take those. Then I'm just going to jump into the calculator and have a couple comments, and then absolutely we'll want to open it up to council to discuss whatever's on the calculator, any additions, deletions, absolutely.
All right, I'm happy to yield.
Thank you.
Okay. And Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, Director Nutter, is the match is 10% or 20% for the grants?
It's a 20% match for the FRA grant that we recently submitted an application for.
Got it. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
And then Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
This is more for everyone's edification. If you could approximate, because I know it changes, timeline of what it looks like, the process, just for everybody's understanding of us putting the money into completion of the development for the plan, from that point to where it goes, and both with and without the grant. We'll set the money aside. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but just that timeline for everybody, please.
I apologize, Deputy Mayor. I did not quite follow the entirety of your question.
Fair enough. It's probably on me.
No, I'm sure it's on me. Yeah.
So the residents are here. Obviously, I'm looking at the timeline, and I'm sure, just like with the quiet zone and the questions of how that's established, and the citywide quiet zone is basically the maximum amount that we can do on our own without Carlsbad. It's
That's
our
correct.
citywide.
Right.
But in line with that, I'm sure there are residents here, because they're highly invested in this, that would be curious to know where we start to talk about, and we're a little off topic, I understand, but just because they're here, let's get this information for them. When we get that remainder of the design together, what is that timeline, or what is the sequence of series of events that need to happen to get to construction, just for everyone's understanding?
Got it. Okay. I appreciate the clarification. So standard sequence of events for a capital project, and it's not quite as simple as that, because neither of these are standard capital projects, as they do have outside agency approval requirements. But generally speaking, right now we are in the design and permitting process for both of those projects. Once we finalize the design and permitting processes, which I mentioned is going to be late fall, early winter for the at-grades and the quiet zone projects, then we will have a completed project specification and cost estimate package, or a PS&E package, and that is what we utilize to obtain construction bids. So theoretically, in probably the end of this calendar year, early calendar year 2027, staff would be ready to begin the bidding process, which means if we had adequate funding at that point, early 2027, we would be able to move forward with having a public bidding process and then selecting a low bidder to then award a construction contract to. Now, in relation to the FRA grants that we've applied to, unfortunately, the FRA did not provide a timing on when they anticipate making selections for that. So the difficulty that we have is, what is that timing going to be, and how is it going to line up with our projects? And unfortunately, that puts you council members in a difficult position, because we don't know when we're going to hear and really what we will hear, meaning whether we'll be we'll have positive outcome or not. So,
what's the no earlier than date? Like what's the earliest they would let us know?
So typically with grant applications, it's usually somewhere between a 4 and 8 month process. I have heard that there is the potential that federal grants are going to be noticed probably somewhere in the summer timeframe. So, whether that happens or not, and whether it happens with this particular administration, meaning the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, I'm not sure, but I do hear that it's going to probably be in summer.
Thank you. And the $300,000 for design is not part of the 1.3.
It's part of the 8.65. It is. It's in the calculator currently.
But it's
the
not
fund.
part of the 1.3 that we would need to get.
No, it's not part of that. No,
Yeah, just
no,
making
that's
sure.
for construction. Thank you.
Full clarification. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's it. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification for everybody.
Okay. And then I thank you. You asked one of my questions, and I want to go down the wayside horn and just understand what's the cost for a wayside horn, and does it preclude horns in that northern segment? Would we have horns with a train heading south if we had wayside horns approved?
So, yeah, great question, Mr. Mayor. So the caveat with any fixed horn system, and I do want you to be very clear of this in the community as well, a train conductor always has the authority to honk their horn, regardless of there being a quiet zone, regardless of whether there's an alternate audible system in place or not. So I do want everyone to know that that's something that the CPUC, NCTD, and the FRA has been very clear to us about. But from a standpoint of costs, there's definitely a little added cost. So right now we're anticipating the wayside horns would roughly be about $150,000. That's part of our current project cost, because again, that's what we are anticipating moving forward with. That's what we are currently proposing. So.
Okay, so it's in the estimates we're talking about for these projects.
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, it would, in theory, eliminate the need for the horn, although drivers, train drivers could ultimately use it anyways, but.
Absolutely. Theoretically, in the best case scenario, when a train comes, whether it's northbound or southbound, they will not find a reason to need to honk, and it would just be the stationary audible systems, a wayside horn, for instance, and that would be a diminished audible sound from an actual train horn. So.
Okay. We've been very focused on moving forward with both these projects as quickly as possible. What I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is $300,000 is in our current budget. That takes us through July with the full design of the at-grade crossings. We would then, I'm sorry, the money is in the budget through July of this year, and then $300,000 will take us almost to the end of the year and get us a full design. And then we're talking about when if and when the FRA grants come out, the match is the 1.3 million for at-grade crossings, 2.9, that's our portion that we would have to fund. What's the timing? And I'm putting a finer point on what Jim asked. Basically, I know you don't know the answer, but we're probably talking in 2027 is the likely, whether it's this fiscal year, the first half of 2027, or the second half of 2027 and next fiscal year when we will need the match in order to get the grant. Does not having the match yet allocated or a resolution saying we are matching prevent us from getting firm quotes and moving forward with the bidding process? Because I would think we would need the bidding process ultimately to know how much all this really is going to cost.
Yeah, so if we get into a situation where we are authorized to receive, or I shouldn't say authorized to receive the grant, we are awarded the grant from the FRA, and we do not yet have our local match in place, typically we would be able to enter into an agreement with the FRA for that granting purpose, meaning that we would have an agreement on what the timing of our local match would be. So it is possible that that local match could come in fiscal year 27. It's also possible that we could have a partial match potentially for fiscal year 26, and we could write our construction contract in such a way where we have a phased funding approach, where we're only funding the first, let's just say, 3 months of construction until we have our fiscal year 27 allocated budget, or excuse me, fiscal year 28 allocated budget, because we're talking about a year from now, in place. So that theoretically would be something that could be a workable solution, because you're right, Mr. Mayor, we won't really be ready to advertise for construction until 9+ months from now. So, and that's really if everything goes perfectly, especially with the quiet zone, ensuring that we get prompt responses from the FRA on that approval process.
Okay, great. That's my questions. With that, I will give the floor back to the city manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Finance Manager Sanderson, would you mind pulling up the budget calculator, please? Great. So for council, so this is, as we put on the top, a draft budget calculator. So here shows the $8.6 million to allocate. So staff has populated this with a couple things. Number one, we've populated with a couple items that we have previously funded in past budget years. We have put things in that we've heard from council. We've included some things. We have a work plan that was presented on March 11th. So there's a couple items in there that are also mentioned as well. So we start off with 2 administrative requests, then we go to O&M requests, and just reminding council on the O&M requests, we do have an extra 20% that goes to our contingency reserve. So that's why you'll see a little bit higher when you see the reoccurring and operating. There's also some capital asks with those O&M requests. Those would be vehicles. Finance Manager Sanderson could thank you very much. And then we do projects for consideration. So most of them are general fund. However, anything highlighted in green, it looks like we're trying to use restricted funds. So first off, the RTCIP with the signal timing, that's mitigation fees that can only be used on certain roads designated by SANDAG, and that helps with traffic congestion. We already said that we had programmed the $250 for housing element. There is the $333,000 from the Encinitas Ranch LLD. for Leo Mullen Turf. We do get the $4.7 million from gas tax and Transnet for paving, and then we show the programmed a little over $214,000 from the cell tower lease. So those are not general fund, so it's not within that 8.6. A couple things that I wanted to mention. I did go ahead and talk to Director Drapkin of Development Services, and we have on here the inclusionary housing feasibility study. During a briefing with Councilmember Lyons, she did remind us that we did do a study back in 18 and then actually approved in 2022. It was done by Kaiser Marsden. So we actually do have kind of a good jumping off base for that. Director Drapkin actually reached out to Kaiser Marsden today. So depending on, because we've got a good start on that, and depending on what council wants, we could possibly drop that to 100 instead of 250 because we already have something started. The other thing that I wanted to mention is temporary fire station 6. So after talking with Director Nutter of Engineering, we are currently in the design and permitting phase for fire station 6. That was funded last year in our budget for a total of $400,000. This is going to take a bit longer than we thought. So we don't feel that we will actually be able to start construction for temporary fire station 6 in this fiscal year. But just letting council know that, again, we're looking at about a $1.9 million cost. We're looking at that very similar to Fire Station 1, which we know what that cost was. So we were looking at about a $1.7 million ask. And then, of course, we're trying to use a little bit of mitigation fees. We want to try to use those restricted funds as soon as we can and for the right purposes. So just as a note, since it wouldn't be built this year, we would obviously, if Fire Station 6 is, we finish permitting and everything this fiscal year, we would look to have an ask for next fiscal year for the temporary fire station. So I just wanted to make those two notes. And again, we have all the staff here. We've got our exec team. We've got other staff here to answer questions about whether it's the positions, administrative requests, or the projects. And again, this is not all encompassing. If council would like to make any changes or they have any additions, this would be the time. What we'll do next is we would like to, on April 8th, that's when we'll actually kind of do the voting and allocating. We'll do exactly what we did last year. We'll send you folks off with a budget calculator of your own that you can pre-populate. And then what we'll do on that meeting is we won't go through the whole PowerPoint again on the financial structure of the city. We'll actually just get right into the budget calculator. And as we all know, we've got to wind up with a big zero. Currently, as a draft, looking at all this, we're about $715,000 in the red. So hopefully April 8th, moving on to the next budget workshop, we get to a zero, and then we will look for a budget introduction after that. So staff is ready to answer any questions, to hear from council, and we're excited to move this forward. So thank you.
Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I'll just jump right to what the key points I want to make are. One thing I want to start with is that I am in support of everything on this list, and I appreciate the hard work that staff and also my colleagues have done to get this list articulated well before we are actually coming before you with this. I'm also, I just want to say philosophically, I don't like to park money without using it. Money needs to work for us every single day, every single week, every single month. So when it comes to the fire station, even though I support that, and I will continue to support it, I think we can use $850,000 very effectively this year in other ways, and then continue our support for the fire station in upcoming years. So philosophically, that's where I stand. So today, I think, is a good opportunity to vet the list. Do we have everything on this list that we want? And before we then go to prioritizing, and I do want to put something forward that I've been talking to the city manager about, and also staff, that has just come up. And I'd like to request that we add it to this list, but if there's not an appetite for that at this time, then at least acknowledge that it's a potential project, a capital project for our engineering capital projects list. I have sent some photographs of the I'll call it the Cornish parking rehabilitation. And this is the area of Cornish from San Alejo. Maybe could you go to the aerial? I think I sent one that was labeled aerial at the bottom. So you can see where this is. This is Santa Fe Drive, and San Alejo. I think a lot of people are familiar with this kind of cross triangular piece. Historically, traffic has pulled off the road right there to get an amazing view of the ocean. And in my 5 years on City Council, I've known that this is becoming more and more of a problem for the community and for pedestrians and for cars. So this shows where this parking challenge is. And staff has given me information based on the city manager directing them that parking rehabilitation in this area would cost about $63,000. So that would be my ask. And if you could then go to the other photos that show what it looks like when you're standing right near, it's a very ragged edge. There's water that runs down and transports sediment down to the storm drain and right into the ocean. So I think there's a real environmental issue. But recently people have said that cars get stuck. There's a lot of rutting. Over time, there's just some soil that's been washed away. So without belaboring this too much, this is a situation that I think would require our intervention in order to get better, in order to improve. The staff suggestion was that we could create a permeable surface and some bumper stops like are in Leucadia right next to the track. So if my colleagues would support this, if we could add it for consideration at $63,000, that's my ask.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
What's the $63,000? Is that for design?
No, that's this. I don't know if I could ask Jennifer for clarification, or it would be Dan, but that was the cost estimate that I was given.
Sure, I can take it. Yeah, so basically that's initial site preparation, removal of vegetation and debris, rough grading, compaction, stabilize unimproved right-of-way with cement-treated base, and then installing the wheel stops. So some of the work would be performed by a contractor, some would be performed by city staff. So that's exactly what that would be.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and with that, we'll move on to Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Just a couple quick questions on that property. Isn't that's owned by the SRF, correct?
No, actually, we own that property. If you look where the palm trees are, SRF is like that side of the palm trees.
Okay.
Yes.
And then is there, I mean, is it zoned as a parking lot? Is it, I mean?
Sure. Basically,
how much liability are we taking on something like this?
Well, right now, currently, we do allow parking because we ended up putting up signs that you can't park after sunset due to some unfortunate behavior by others. So it has been parking for years. So basically, I mean, we've got ACMJ Schwarm in the room as well. It would be similar to kind of over like where Vulcan is. So we do own it. It has been used for parking. And we've had some issues in the past. We've got some garbage cans and things out there. But, you know, we were out there on Monday, and yeah, there's quite a few people that do use it. So we could make improvements to the area.
And so, and we're just putting curbs in, and then we're finishing off the pavement? Is that what we're looking to do on the edge?
I think it would reinforced, not reinforced, stabilized asphalt, gravel type.
Yeah, so the intent would be to ensure that we've got a continuous asphalt concrete edge that doesn't just end in a 4 to 6 inch drop off. So we would make sure that we feather that down to an appropriate landing elevation. And then the remainder of the actual parking area, right now we'd be anticipating laying a cement-treated base material, which is the same material that we've utilized in the parking pods in Leucadia. So it would have a very similar look and feel and use to that. And then we would install wheel stops because this is a hill edge, so we don't want to create any other liability issues by not protecting that edge.
Okay. Okay. I feel like we gotta be really careful. We might be creating a problem we don't have, and so I'm a little cautious. I mean, I know I just went to Panic In yesterday, and my card bottoms out where we put those stops. And I drive a truck. It's not like I'm in a low-lying car. I think anytime we do these types of projects, I have a lot of disbelief that this is a $63,000 project. And that's why I'm asking these questions. I'm not opposed to it in any way, but I'd like to get a more realistic number on what it looks like down the road. We're talking about there being potholes there. We need to fill those potholes. We need to level them off. And I don't know, maybe there's a part of me that looks at something like this and says, that is Encinitas. The fact you just pull over on the side of the road and you look at the sunset, but people do it and we need to adjust it. So I think I would just like a more realistic estimate of what that project looks like, because $60,000 isn't going to get it done, not from anything else we do here.
So I don't want to speak for a public works team, but Sylvester, I'm pointing at you. I can if you're okay with that. Or okay. He's a smart man. Yeah, don't let me speak for him.
Director of Engineering Nutter, I would probably refresh council's memory, because you just did pavement management, but that road is actually scheduled to be paved in this cycle. So I just wanted to let everyone know. I mean, because I know we approved it, but it's the timing. Yeah.
So thank you, City Manager Campbell. I appreciate that. So there's two parts to this particular issue. One is what the asphalt edge currently looks like. So that would be feathered out as part of our FY26 pavement rehabilitation project. That's something that we are going to be starting construction on for that project in the next month or so. The additional work, which would be the actual parking pod type of layout with CTB, things of that nature. I'll let Director Maybury speak.
Okay.
To
I don't need to. I think I've heard enough. Okay. We're here to talk about the budget, and right now we're getting into a project discussion, right? We're talking about what it takes. No, we're talking about what it takes to get into the project. I caution council into directing money into a project that's not ready to go. We have so many projects that are ready to go that need our attention in the city, and if we don't have a full project, I'm in favor of this project. I think we should look into this project. We should look into getting a more accurate scope of it. I think it's a great idea, Joy. Councilmember Lyons. Clearly it's not ready to be part of our budget yet because it's not a project. And so I want to caution council to include it in there, but I do want to encourage us to look further into it, maybe add it as a council-initiated item, that you could explore that and have staff come back with a truer look at what this will take. But I love the idea. I think it's great. It's thinking out of the box, and it's something we should all be doing. I was kind of going the same way with the temporary fire station, kind of adjusting some of that money so that we're not putting the whole thing aside to kind of bring some money back. I think that bringing the circulation element down to $100,000 is already where I was going. I don't think we need to continue to spend money on a consultant service on this, especially when those consultants are going to be replaced pretty soon with technology. I 1,000%, just like I think everybody up here, support the at-grade crossing design going forward to complete that design. I think that if we're going to have anything that's number one in our discussion, I think we should all just come right forward and say we're going to support that. I think it's more than just what we heard today. It's also a public health and safety issue in the city, mental and physical, and that's public safety is a huge, huge priority. I would like a better explanation about the facility specialist. I understand it looks like it's going from a part-time to a full-time position. Not really clear why we don't have current enough staff to do those jobs, but so I wouldn't mind more of an explanation. And then when we go to the city arborist, in case this crosses over, I'm just curious for my own information, bringing in an urban forester, does the rest of the budget account for ending our current contract in UFAC, because we won't need those anymore? So is this a transition of money, or is this money out of our budget? I guess that's a good word of clarification. What happens to the money we were spending?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for that question. So if you look, there's an expense offset underneath, and it says reduce city arborist contract. So yes, right now there's 180, so exactly, we will no longer need the contract with DUDAC. We may need a small contract with an outside arborist, and ACM Jay Schwarm is here. Yep, she's looking at me. Sometimes we do risk assessments that we need that are not done by staff, so we would probably, probably have about 20 grand for that. But yes, this means that would go away, Deputy Mayor. Yes. So that's basically, so we're taking the money that we were spending on a contract and putting it on an FTE.
Great, I'm in full support of that. And then if I could ask just for further clarification on the facilities specialist.
Thank you for your question, Deputy Mayor. Jared Elmore, Senior Management Analyst from Public Works. In our presentation on the facility condition assessment, I noted that we needed an estimate of 3 FTE ongoing as a minimum baseline requirement to complete the recommended projects, the capital maintenance projects that are in that report. We noted that we were going to do a ramp up, and so this is the initial step. It's the smallest step we can take to start that ramp up process while we align our roster of vendors and get those projects underway. So it's conversion of a current contract part-time staffing arrangement to a 1.0 FTE full-time permanent.
Okay, so this is to keep us on track?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think that's the majority of my questions right now. I appreciate that. I do know something I'd like to see us come back to in this discussion, especially if we're looking to effectively kind of bring some of these numbers down. I know I read in the public comments, but I also was looking at myself, the South Coast Highway 101, sidewalk and bike improvements, the HSIP. I'd like to start moving money towards that project. Sorry, that is line N, and I mean ideally line N and O kind of synchronize. I know we have a large portion of the population that would like to see this a little friendlier, a little bit safer, and I think we have the opportunity in the window to address both of those aspects of it, to make it a even better space for everyone that uses it. It's packed on the weekends. It was packed today in the day, so we want to make it a safer and easier space for our users. So I'd like the council to kind of consider that, and I'll rest at that.
Okay. So I'll hop in here. I want to step back up a level above where we've been talking. We've been down in projects, and I want to talk about a little bit of where we're going with this budgeting process and make sure we're, it's a 5-year CIP, and before we were looking at a snapshot of all the wish lists, so to speak, and the approximate numbers, and there was no phasing in here. So what we're talking about today is going back to the way we used to do it, boy, a long time ago, much more standard what I've done in business, which is a waterfall chart of I'm going to allocate this much this year, this much next year, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to go back and quote Jim from last year's budget, need to have versus want to have. I think I've been consistent, quiet zone, at grade, need to have, absolutely need to have. And I think everybody up here has been saying that. So we need to fund that. We need to figure out what the funding. I'm a little interested in that 5-year timing, and I think Dan went into that, and I think we're going to find that the timing is on the cusp, and we probably partially fund this year, partially fund next year. If I had to bet, that's where it's going to go. So then I started looking, and you've got the calculator up. If you could slide down just a little. That's perfect right there. So if you notice on line 10, you've got the facilities for $2 million, and we had a very good presentation by Public Works last week, and as far as the budget there, and we have. It could be $4 million, but I think it's probably closer to the $2 million per year unfunded maintenance that has been occurring. And we are all about basic infrastructure first. We have a roof on this building that needs fixing. We have things that have been neglected we're going to fix. So I don't know that I want to touch that $2 million, but bottom line, to get enough money to, let's say, fund half of the quiet zone and the for the matching of the quiet zone and the at-grade crossing, I probably need on the order of $2 million. So I'll slide down a little further, and I'll go down to line 19, Santa Fe East. So now I got a question. I can start doing comparative shopping, and I would love to get Santa Fe East done. I want to get Santa Fe West done right first, and I can wait on Santa Fe East another year, but I cannot wait potentially on quiet zone and at-grade crossing. I got to have the funds at the right time. I think we've been consistent, committed to getting it done. And so my change here at the big picture right now is I would push Santa Fe East off. Now I'm going to give Dan a shot because I know your first comment is going to be you were hoping to do West and East simultaneously and save some money. If you can respond to that and let me know, am I wasting a little bit of money there, or how bad is it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Economy of scale always helps. So we would have some economic savings if we constructed both projects at once. We do have a similar timeline for both projects from the standpoint of when we anticipate we'll finish up design. I do want to just remind council that we have an ATP grant on our Santa Fe East project. That ATP grant expires in September of 2027. Now, with that being said, there is the potential for a year-long extension, but that's not guaranteed. I personally would prefer not towing the line on whether or not we're going to be granted that year extension. I think it would be recommended that we are well in the way of construction before September 2027 for Santa Fe East, if that is possible.
If that is possible.
If it's possible.
Okay. And ultimately it lands on us on where we think the urgency is and the possibility of losing. How big is the grant, by the way?
The grant is roughly $900,000. We have about $700,000 remaining on the grant.
Okay, so we've spent 200 of it.
Exactly. We've expended about 200 through the design process. The remainder is for construction.
Okay. So, and then the last area, again, back up at that high level, sliding around the blocks in year to year, the time, your comments about the timing of Fire Station 6. I am in full support of getting Fire Station 6 done, but it may be, in fact, pushed into next year for the construction costs. And I would support that because in my mind, pushing the $850,000 off of this, and I understand that's half of Fire Station 6. We would push it all into the next year or into mid-year because there's a likelihood or a possibility we'll get $2.6 million from FEMA reimbursement. That's on the presentation. We may have a favorable year again with property taxes going up faster. So at mid-year budget review, we may have extra money to allocate for some of these others and then pull them back in if they need pulling back in. But I think we keep the accelerator to the floor on quiet zone and at-grade crossings and go with the flow on Fire Station 6 and see what, and then ultimately, if I go need to have versus want to have, those three come before Santa Fe East in my book. And, we've had Santa Fe East in the state it is forever. And I think that's just where I'm going to come from on this trade-off. So with that, I'll yield to Councilmember San Antonio.
Well, I know we got to get to zero here.
Yeah.
Not today, but I know that's what we're working for. Station 6 was something I put forward myself, but I do understand the timing of it, as well as, that's quite a bit of money in there. I want to at least say that this is something that is important to me. It's important to the community, not just Olivenheim, but Village Park as well. So, fire is going that way. This is the first line of defense. So I just want to say it's very important to me, and I believe it's important to our community. So, but I do understand 100% that this is something that can be pushed off till next year. I just ask that it is something that I think to what Mayor Earl said is just to be sure we keep our foot in the accelerator and keep that as something in the forefront, that is something that needs to be funded at some point next year when that comes around. So I'm happy to support that coming off there. Joy, I think that's a great idea that you put forward. I think my only question was I think you said there was, drainage issues and stuff. So I think as I think about it with some of the other things we've talked about in pavement is I think if we're going to do it right, because I'm not familiar with the concrete that you're talking about, but I wouldn't want that to just start washing away and then now it's a yearly thing or bi-yearly thing we got to fix. So, but I do think that's a great idea to look at that, because definitely a lot of people definitely park there, and it's just such a beautiful view of Swami's as well. It's iconic if you ask me. So I understand that that's definitely one of the parts of Encinitas that's really beautiful. Nobody's mentioned it, but I think Jennifer mentioned it for the inclusionary housing feasibility study. It is $250,000 if anybody's would support it. I think taking off 150 on that kind of makes sense. If we need to find more money for some of these, find more money somewhere, I think that makes sense to me since we do have something started already. Obviously, the pavement index for me, it's infrastructure is important. So I know we put a lot of money towards that, and I don't want to slip from, what we're shooting for at 70-ish% or the 75%. Yeah, I want to lose track of that, because that is something that obviously we just, Leucadia was such a great drive now versus what it was. So you realize quickly how important the pavement index is. So the pavement rehab for me, that's also important, because it's part of what we do on the daily life here is drive our cars, ride our bikes. So I just want to be sure I know that's important, but I don't know. Maybe we could take some money off there, but I don't really want to. I'm just kind of going through this list of what's, I guess to what Jim said or Deputy Mayor said, need tos and want to have. So just, God, that Station 6. Come on, guys. All right, I'll rest there.
Thank you, Mayor. Sylvester, or Dan, either one. That 63,000, what's the savings if we do it in conjunction with the road? 63,000 for the Santa Fe, Cornish parking. Is it so cheap for 63,000 or whatever we're calling it because of the road work that's going to be done at the same time?
Yeah, so Councilmember Schaefer, you're correct. The $63,000 is not anticipating that the pavement contractor would do the parking lot area. What that is anticipating is that the pavement contractor would do the edge shoulder feathering of the asphalt down to what's dirt right now. Right. So we're going to make sure that happens, and that's going to happen regardless of whether we do additional improvements to the parking pod area.
Okay, and then I know our Public Works is up close and personal with the drainage issues and all the stuff throughout town. So this is something we would do. Is it going to have a yearly cost to it? Would it have a yearly, or are we going to set it up so that drainage is kind of a part of the design and for that $63,000?
So this would not solve the drainage issue. What it would do is it would help some of the sediment transport issues. So right now, that parking area is dirt. Whenever we do have rain events, the dirt gets picked up with the stormwater runoff, and it goes down Cornish to San Alejo. Having a crushed aggregate that would be larger in size. It's going to be less mobile when you have rain events to be pulled away and be transported.
And then our guys are already out there doing pumping and other stuff. Is there stuff that we could do before, large-scale events to kind of minimize sandbags, stuff of that nature to help, keep people off parking it, anything like that that we can keep? Again, $63,000 seems like a steal.
Yeah, and
for that area. It seems too good to be true. And if it is, then let's do it. That's a good use of our money. So I just want to make sure that we close the loop on that. If it's something we can do and it's not going to be another 50 every year because we kind of have to redo the whole thing, well then I think the timing is right.
And I'll let Director Mayberry speak to the ongoing costs, because I do know that with our parking pods in Leucadia, we do a regular surface treatment because of having dust concerns.
But we have the FTEs for that. We have the equipment for that, and it's a nominal cost.
Yes, it is. It is a nominal cost, and a $63,000 estimate. I'm confident that we could get it done with that amount. We're using a contractor for the all-weather surface, but then my team will be handling the curb stops and some of the fine grading. So I'm confident that we can get it done in that. And we did add contingency to that estimate of $63,000.
Awesome.
And this is similar to what we did in North Vulcan.
Yeah.
My team did that, and it's holding up today.
It is, yeah.
I'm confident.
And so what would it cost be if the construction team wasn't coming through to redo the road? What would it cost if we just did just that without repaving and all that stuff?
That's $63,000 because this is the informal parking area. That's what we're addressing.
Copies, but if we had to feather and do the whole thing, would that add a?
You would probably add another 20,000-ish, maybe 30,000-ish dollars.
So we're saving $20,000.
Yeah, because it's work that was going to be done regardless.
I just want to make sure that if we were saving 200, 400, whatever, but 20,000 is the savings.
And plus, you're using a crew we already have, so they're putting labor effort in there, and there's even more money beyond that is part of their salary. But they go around to do this kind of maintenance, like Vulcan, and many other places, many other places, smaller jobs. So we save money. That's why we have on-staff public works.
Correct.
That and flooding.
So I just want to make sure. I just want to get into that because I do think that's a great project and it's a great pickup. Councilmember Lyons, that area is frequented. It's right off the freeway. People come there routinely from out of town that frequent there. So I think it's a worthwhile thought process. As far as Santa Fe East, is there a way to cut that $2 million in half? Because you just said September of 27, so we would be at a fiscal year 27, 28. If we had enough to get it started, get it going, and then again, this is where the 5-year CIP would be beneficial because we could just say we only need this much for this year. So,
absolutely. So, right now we anticipate we'll be ready for the bidding and advertising process if Santa Fe East was fully funded, probably in about the September timeframe, August, September
26
of this year, this calendar year, which. Once we go through the bidding process, when we have our notice to proceed, it would probably be late calendar year 2026. So, yeah, we would probably expend about $1 million in fiscal year 26, something of that magnitude, if we were not to slow down at all, if we weren't to delay.
So could we grab $1 million from that Santa Fe East? And that way you would still be able to get work going and you wouldn't miss out on the grant and all the...
I think that would be a fair compromise, and I think that would be a good cash flow management strategy.
Okay. And then I would say I am in agreement because of Director Nutter's recommendation. I do think that Station 6, I think we're moving forward. I don't think that we're delaying anything. And so if it's not delaying anything, let's not park the money there and let it, not work for us. So we're on track. We don't need the money there right now. Let's use it for somewhere else, which only gives us back from the current setup. It only gives us back $134,323. So if we could grab $1 million from there, I'm 100% obviously behind. I've talked routinely. I didn't think we need the whole conversation. I think we've talked about it. At-grade crossings and quiet zones is something we've talked about since before we got up here. So it's happened. We're all on it. There's no delaying it. The proper funding and how it's going to go. The $2.6 million, hopefully from FEMA, from the lake response. So are you trying to say, Mayor Ehlers, to get rid of the $2 million completely for East, or just get rid of $1 million, or to?
Sorry. What I was saying is probably delay it to the following year. In order of priority, I would do crossings and quiet zone first, fire station 6 next, whatever we need in that year, and then East. But I'm the only concern is the $900,000 grant timing.
Yes,
Sure.
of course.
Yeah.
So, Councilmember Schaefer, I appreciate that, and Director Nutter, I do appreciate the creative funding of Santa Fe East. However, when we bid a project and we award it, we have to have all the money. You can't. We can't do that because that puts the city in a liability issue. Because what you're actually doing is you're going to sign a contract for all this work, and it's going to cost you, but you're only going to have funding for half. So I know that I've worked with ACM Jay Schwarm on this, and we've basically told staff, when you bid out a job, we have to have all that money up front in order to award it, because we don't want to get ourselves in any liability issues with that contractor. And as you know, we've had some issues with different contractors, so they're pretty smart about that. So I do want to just go ahead and point that out. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, so we're not splitting the baby on that.
And we don't have to agree today on balancing all this.
Yeah.
We're throwing out the ideas to
Conversation,
give staff ideas that come back, and then we will have actual calculator up there displayed, and we'll go through and get to a consensus on April
8th.
April 8th.
What I would say is what's up?
When you're done. Continue.
So if we were to split that, and I know we're not talking about that, but just looks at I do think that the ACT rate is actually more important of the two. I think quiet zones is absolutely important. Going to Del Mar, going to San Clemente, hearing the wayside horns, I do think they suffice. And like you said, the conductor can 100% every time blow the horn whenever they want. That being said, I have not seen them blow the horn in Del Mar. I have not seen or heard them, probably better, do it in San Clemente. So they choose not to. I think that is a consistent and effective way for $150,000 versus $2.9 million, which is just our portion of the match. That's a significant amount. So if we're reaching into our pockets for real money, I think the at-grade costing is exactly what we need. I don't want to forego the quiet zone, but because of the canon, kind of, I'll call it BS, that we can't get a quiet zone for 6 miles all the way up the road. Whatever, that is what it is. I think the absolute bottom line is the at-grade, the wayside horn. That's the one we should be going for. If we're not going to right now be able to fund that, or if we waited for that FEMA money coming in, that would maybe where we back up the quiet zone side. So that's where my intentions are. I do support Councilmember Lyons' initiative on the $63,000. I think the timing is right. I think we're going into summer. I think we have. We keep forgetting that FEMA's up. FIFA World Cup is this summer, just up the road. We're a highly soccer capable location. We just got the some of this Olympic soccer at Snapdragon, as I think of this week or today. So we need to be starting to get ready for some of those things, and that is Santa Fe due west, half a mile, and you're right there. It's time to put something there. I think it's a good use of our money, but I'll yield.
Okay. Councilmember Lyons.
I'll just wrap up with a few comments to reinforce a couple points. But I do appreciate that there's some council support for the Cornish parking rehabilitation at $63,000. And I think that provides us with some benefits to jump right on that and make sure we capture the benefits of the repaving and the edge reconstruction at the same time. So I hope that we continue to show that that's an item that we can put on this budget calculator, and we'll see how the numbers turn out. But I do want to say that Santa Fe East is almost entirely in my district, and I've really been involved with that important project for the 5+ years I've been on City Council. A lot of the community sees Santa Fe East and Santa Fe West all together as one project. We had to break it in pieces in order to be responsive to the different types of funding that they were getting. But really, the whole roadway from I-5 to El Camino Real was conceived together and is intended to improve safety along that whole corridor all the way to El Camino Real. The community would like for that to continue to move forward, and I think it would be almost, kind of a healing or a very positive action for us to fund that, to show we are committed to that corridor, and we are committed to safety, and to make it continuous all the way to El Camino Real. So I would support us to continue to keep the $2 million for that project construction on our list. I did understand that the inclusionary housing feasibility study could be budgeted at $100,000, and I just want to say I support that. And I did hear some interest in the circulation element and EIR update being thought of as perhaps less than the $250,000. And so if there's a way if there's support for that beyond me, and if there's a way for our staff to come back and propose how that could be done for less than $250,000, I'd be in support of that. And with that, I'll yield.
Okay, Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Yeah, I'll jump into that. Is the $250,000 for the circulation element, EIR element update, that is for a consultant?
All right. Director Drapkin, could you please come up?
Mayor, members of the council, Scott Drapkin. Hi. Sorry, the nod wasn't enough. Yes, that is for a consultant.
Okay.
Just for the initial first year part of that.
So I bet
request.
if we were to provide your staff with the tools to do it in-house, we have the expertise to finish it off, right?
We would not be able to provide staff the tools to do that because it would take a very technical approach to doing many of these things, like completing the EIR, doing a potential analysis for insufficiencies for the right-of-way. It also has a modeling component of it as well, all requiring things that are technical beyond staff.
So, okay. I disagree with you on that, but I appreciate the answer.
No problem.
I come back in 127 days when we come back from our report from my initiated item next week, because I think that's going to be something that kind of opens our eyes to our opportunities as a city to augment your staff's ability to do their job and amazingly well without $150,000 extra, which I'm really excited about for you. So
yeah.
I appreciate the answer, and it's great. I love that this is moving forward. I think we've talked about circulation a lot. Thank
Absolutely.
you. I appreciate it. So a couple of quick questions. This is to Public Works. Where does the money come from for the repair and the pullouts in Leucadia? So and specifically the dirt parking lots on the east side of the road on the 101.
The streetscape project funded that.
So where does the rest of the money come from? So I was just there yesterday and it's a mess. Where does the money come from to fix that?
The O&M, the maintenance is.
Yeah, I mean it's a mess. So where does the money come for that? Anyone who wants to go to Panican with me tomorrow, you can come in here. My car drop bottom out as I pull into the parking lot. The pullouts on the east side of the road. Yeah.
Just the one spot.
No, it's all over the place. It's not just the one spot. Where is the annual maintenance fund for all of that come?
come from Public Works annual maintenance budget.
Okay, and
Street
so
maintenance.
if we do a project like the other project, it's going to come from that budget as well to maintain it every year. And-
Absolutely. Yes,
and
sir.
at some point, because we are behind on all these projects, from what I can tell, we're going to need an additional body to do it, right? Because right now, we are clearly behind on maintenance on this, or we haven't scheduled it to be done often enough. So to me, that says the cost of this is going to go up, right?
Valid point.
So I come back to this project that I think is a really good idea, but I don't think we've fully vetted it out. It is going to cost more. It always costs more, and it's we're not looking at what it's going to cost to maintain it, because it's the same exact thing is going to happen. The hydrology there is going to be really harsh on this project no matter what, with the water running downhill off the hardscape onto the soft surface, creating ruts. I'm just going to remind council, I think we should focus on projects that are ready to go. I do think, as much as I love this project and I like to look at it, it is also a nice to have. I think looking at the sunset is nice. Keeping your house from flooding is need. So drainage and things like that become very important. And I appreciate answering the questions. This is more, this line of question going down is more for the edification of my council members. So thank you. I appreciate it. My other question, and I also want to follow up, I think Santa Fe East, I think it is important for two reasons. One, I do feel that there's a lot of our residents who want to make sure that that road is safe. We looked at Santa Fe and El Camino Real and addressing that. And so let's just fix this whole thing and show how well Encinitas can work as a whole. We've talked about a holistic traffic plan and something that looks at from one end of the street to the other to get you all the way across town. This is our chance to do it on this street. Then other streets, I know Encinitas Boulevard, we've talked about fixing the lights on there. This is our chance to really do something holistic and not just piece by piece. That is needed. And again, the grant money falls for it. I also would be concerned if we move this back, we are going to have needs for money. I don't think the at-grade crossing or the quiet zone, one is more important than the other. They're both a health crisis in the city, affecting 10,000 people in the city easily. And so I don't want to put one in front of the other. I don't want to have to pick and choose. I want to get them both. And I think we can if we do that. So I don't want to delay a project that's $2 million on here a year, because next year if we don't have it, and I'm sitting here and we're telling these people, well, we have to choose between safety on Santa Fe or safety at the railroad. I want to tell them we chose safety both times. My last question is something to look at, and I think we talked about this, and Councilmember Lyons, I think, we talked about it during the development of Fire Station 1 when we were on the council, or the committee that worked on that. Part of what we looked at when we looked at Fire Station 1 was Fire Station 6 and how they could work in concert and possibly move one facility to Fire Station 6 and all that. So I'd really like us to bring the two projects together. And I don't know if that needs to be done in a budgetary sense or that needs to be done at city manager level to make this an overall scope of putting them in almost the same pot, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure if that would be the right way to put it. But what does it look like to get them both going in a direction with a vision of clear so they can work synchronously, so we're not spending a lot of money here and then spending a lot of money on the next one? Is it a public-private use of the facility and build out? Is it something that allows us to take Fire Station 1, temporary Fire Station 1, and move it to Fire Station 6 and solve a whole bunch of our problems all at once? Or is it something where we fix Fire Station 1, we sell that temporary station, and then we put that money towards Fire Station 6? So I'd really like us, and again, I don't know if this is the right time to do it, but it certainly affects the budget, because budget is what's going to drive these two projects. I'd like to really see us put these two projects as one project, maybe separate out. They're two separate buildings that are outcomes, but they're the same pot of money if we do this right, and we're managing the asset in that pot of money as best as possible to get both of these stations. I think we had a great year last year with the budget. I think we have the chance to continue going with a great year. And I think last and probably most importantly, I'm redundant here, but it comes back to public safety, and we need that station out there. I think Councilmember San Antonio is 100% right with this and in support of his residents in getting that station out there. So if we can combine the two, and it gives us the ability to get that station there quicker, maybe addresses whether we need the $850,000 this year or not. that's the conversation I'd like to see us have around that, so we can use that money as effectively as possible. I'll rest. I appreciate the opportunity to have the input.
Okay. So could you bring up the debt service, my favorite chart? Basically, we have about 5.5 million in debt service, and out of the general fund, we get about 5 million. 500,000 comes from a dedicated, park fund?
acquisition.
Yeah. So this is really an important chart to see because this tells us when we'll have borrowing capacity. And we have a little borrowing capacity, and each year as our revenues go up, we get a little more. But in 5 years, in 2031 is our first drop there. You see that drop of about $1 million, and that'll give us either an additional $1 million we can spend per year on things going forward, or we could bond stuff such as Fire Station 1, permit at Fire Station 6, permit at Fire Station 1. You then look out, and it's right around 2037, I want to say, where we get another $1.5 million drop there. And then a year later, it drops. We're almost debt-free out there in, well, not debt-free, yeah, but essentially 38, 39, yeah. And so this the challenge I want to give to the council and to staff is we need to be looking not only 5 years out, but kind of the big picture. When do I want to be buying a new fire station, permanent fire station? When do I want to be? Heck, we someday have to fund probably in the order of $20 to $25 million for drainage in Leucadia and streetscape segment B, because that's the gap right now. So we still have quite a few huge things. So I wanted to make sure I didn't come across that when I say taking the $2 million next year from Santa Fe East, I'm not saying permanently. I'm saying delay it a year. So when I come back, I will come back with a 5-year plan of when I think we should be spending the money, when we're really going to need it too. And it's really a phasing. And again, I think if the timing is that we should be doing Quiet Zone and at-grade crossing sooner is better, and I think we've shown that. So, but I wanted to make sure everybody understands that that Santa Fe East, Santa Fe West, I would love to have enough money to do it all in one properly and even do the Crest roundabout that got bifurcated originally out of that project and should have been in there. So, 5-year plan, think about timing of when these are going to occur. And I didn't respond to the 63,000. If it in fact is 63,000, I am all for that because that is right at the end of the rail trail, and a lot of people are parking there even more than used to. So I think that's why the probably added wear and tear. I did want to note that for those people, we talked about Leucadia Boulevard getting repaved. There's still a segment down by the freeway. That's in this year's budget and will be done in the next 4 months or so, 5 months at the most. And I think I talked about everything. So with that, I don't see any other speakers. Did you have any comments?
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. Great job today. I do want to thank our budget staff. They've done a great job. We're still going to continue to work. I want to thank all the directors and budget coordinators. So just a couple follow-ups, if I may. So we're ready for the 8th. So what we're going to do is we will look to see on the circulation element EIR, we'll see if there's any way to bring that number down. As far as Fire Station 6, I do appreciate what the mayor said about mid-year. We do. We generally get the audit done by December 31st, when we can always look depending on how we're doing with the permitting and design. I do want to make a comment to Deputy Mayor O'Hara. The fire chief and I discuss daily, so we actually talked today about public-private partnerships and things like that. So we will definitely be working towards that. What do we do with Fire Station 1 and 6? So thank you very much for that comment as well. And then as far as the Cornish Drive, what we will do is we'll get the information off to council on the costs, and then we'll also put together what we think the maintenance costs might be, so that when we come back on April 8th, we have all the information that we need. So we'll go ahead and get you folks your own calculators, and we will come back on April 8th and dive right into it. So I just want to thank everyone for all the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn until 10 after, so we can get a little break in here and start our regular meeting at 6:10. We are adjourned.